Hi guys, and welcome back to AKA Mama. As one of my sisters named it, I was on an AKA vacation. I enjoyed the festive season, spent quality time with the family, created new memories, and now I'm back up and running. Happy to be speaking with you guys. And I thought a little bit, I was like, which topic shall I speak about today? So for those of you that have been following my channel, last year I had what I called a micro series where I was covering multiple topics around, childbirth and the newborn phase and whatnot. And I know one of the topics I had said I would address was the importance of a birth plan and how to create it. But by the time I got to the end of the series, I was just like over it and I didn't feel like talking about the whole birth plan scenario. But I don't want to start the new year with the chikwereti. So I decided that's the first topic I'm going to address today, and then I continue at 2026 on a clean slate. The first time that I heard about a birth plan or I encountered it, it was when one of my friends' friend had a child. And so what my friend was saying is that it's something that hospitals look down upon. It's commonly done by academic snobs. It's like a wish list. Like, when I give birth, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. So I had this negative connotation around the topic of birth plan. Never looked into it because of course it wasn't of interest to me. But when I was pregnant, I was listening to this podcast that covered so many topics. It was a pregnancy podcast. And one of the topics it covered was, the importance of creating a birth plan. And then I thought to myself, this is very different from the information that I, had up until that date. And, it was just talking about how it can boost your confidence and it can empower you before you go into labor, fully knowing what your options are. And you've preoccupied yourself with the topics and you don't find yourself in a situation where you're making a decision under stress. Because nobody can ever 100% predict how things are going to go in advance. And I thought, hey, this sounds like my kind of thing. So I dug deeper into it, I researched on it, and I decided I am definitely going to have a birth plan. But I also wasn't sure if it's really true that doctors and midwives look down upon this thing. So one thing I prioritized for myself was, no matter what I'm going to write in there, I'm also going to express that I'm flexible on a need basis. That's one thing. Anyway, speaking of this whole birth plan topic, and then I figured a lot of fathers, or let's say partners, husbands, whatever, they're really, really, really overwhelmed when their wives, girlfriends are in labor. Sometimes they just really don't know what to do because it's like stand around and wait for the baby to come. But then I found that if you have a birth plan, you can like sit down with your partner, talk about it, and they can be your channel of communication, and you can just focus on yourself, focus on your body, focus on the baby, and you don't have to be speaking with all these doctors and midwives, and just concentrate on yourself. So I absolutely love that. And of course, in preparation for this episode, I was like, let me have a look at my birth plan and see what I wrote. And I must say, I'm very impressed. No, I read it and I was like, whoa, who were you? I was full on in mama mode. So of course you have your important information, like your personal details. And then this is how I did it, but afterwards I'm going to like touch on a different way that you can do it. Because I know when I came up with this, I read various websites and I picked my favorite elements from the different websites. But not everybody has the energy or the tenacity to be doing it like that. I'm going to share 2 links in the description of websites where you can see a template or where there's a step-by-step guide of how to draft a birth plan and points that you should take into consideration. So of course mine was not fully extensive for everybody, but it was covering the topics that were important to me. So the very first part, I expressed what was really important to me. And in this part, that's where I also expressed that I just want to focus on myself, my body, and the baby. Any further communication should be taken up with the dad. And I had a conversation with him, of course, in advance. We went through all the points of the birth plan. So he fully understood why I wanted what I had expressed here and, the consequences of each decision. And then the next part was like birthing positions. I wrote what I wanted and why, what I didn't want. And of course, I expressed that I was flexible to change on a need basis. And then I covered the points that were important to me during the moment of actually giving birth. There were quite a few points over there. When you stop to think about it, you'll see how many various options that you have. At least the next section that I had, it had to do with the... I have lost the English term. Nabelschnur auspulsieren. I don't remember what it is in English. I'm going to have to write it on the screen. That was very, 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 very important to me. And then the next section I covered what I wanted done with my placenta. Of which like 2 weeks ago, I saw something on the internet. There's placenta scandals out there. I have not yet gone down the rabbit hole yet. But anyways, I expressed what I wanted done with my placenta. That could also potentially be an interesting topic for another day. And then I wrote what I wanted after the baby was born. And then the last point I wrote was about breastfeeding. For those of you that have watched some of my videos, you know that I'm an absolute big fan and advocate for breast crawl. So that was one of the things that I put here. And then I wrote 2 additional wishes. But those are the main points that I had covered in my birth plan. And I must say, I did it. And as much as I found it empowering, I found it important, I was also a bit hesitant because I was like, you know, my friend said hospitals associated with academic snobs. I also didn't want to be classified an academic snob. But when I was in labor, one of the things that the midwives asked, she asked me, do you have a birth plan? I was so happy I could say yes. I said yes. And they said, okay, can you please share it with us? Would love to read it so that they could ask questions if they had any questions in advance. I had a few copies that I had printed, and then they read through it and they're like, we got you, girl. And it was so good. It was so good. And I will tell you, there are so many things we did differently to what I had wished for, to what I had expressed. But because I had also written that I'm flexible on a need basis, it was absolutely fine. I think just because you have a birth plan, it doesn't mean that everything is set in stone. You have to do it exactly like what's written down there. And that's one of the things that I loved about it. Additional to having this birth plan, of course, you're then going to have the conversation with your partner to talk through it. I found out that there's quite a number of men that faint when their partners are in labor. I am so sorry. My head cannot process that. My head cannot process that. You can't be so good at making a child, but you're not good at like waiting it out through the process of the child being born. For me personally, fainting is an absolute no-go. If we're gonna sit down and talk about the birth plan and whatnot, if you know you could potentially faint, I don't need you there. Because what the heck? What the heck? I don't know. I just find it unattractive for a man to faint during labor. Cause what? I mean, if you know you're gonna faint, just don't go. Look for somebody else to be the support system, because yeah, your partner is your support system, but if you're out there fainting, you're not any support. But I personally don't know any guy in my circle that fainted whilst their wife or girlfriend were in labor. If you're watching my video and you know me and you fainted, please slide to my DMs. You and I need to have a conversation. I have so many questions. I'm literally waiting to meet such a man and ask him. I want to understand. And I also want to understand, did they know in advance that they're potentially going to faint? Or were they also shocked in the moment? Guys, fainting is an absolute no. Anyway, I'm just gonna scoot over to this website. All right, so like I said in the description, I put 2 links. One is from babylist.com and the other one is from thebump.com. I screened through them and I felt like the one from thebump.com, it has so many points, but so many points. They're not all going to be relevant to you, but if this topic is new to you, you've never preoccupied yourself with it, I think the one from the bump is good. Everything you don't need, you can ignore. Everything that's relevant to you, you can be like, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought of this one. So yeah, as you'll see, it says how to write a birth plan, a comprehensive guide and template. Yes, I like that part. It's just a guide. You don't have to capture everything that's in there. So they also have a template, which is really good. And I'm just going to scroll down so that you see, some of the key parts that are covered on the website. And like I mentioned earlier, important medical information, birth and support team, labor preferences, delivery preferences, C-section and other necessary interventions, during birth and after baby is born, newborn care. Ooh, and this is really nice. They have a checklist with, the finer details. So I think this is a really good guideline. And just browse through it and you can decide. You can also look at it and think, I don't need that. I'm gonna wing it. If that's your vibe, then go for it. I mean, either way, with or without a birth plan, a person's just gonna wing it anyways. So that was that. I've paid my security. I've, addressed this topic that I had planned on addressing last year. I hope you enjoyed it. And like I said, I found having a birth plan very empowering. I loved it. I had a very positive birth experience. And it's a form of preparation. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button. If you have any questions, experiences you want to share, or comments, don't hesitate to drop them below. And see you next Friday. Thank you so much. Bye.
Like, comment, subscribe, and share.